All right. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey there. How are
Nice
you?
to see you again.
Thank you.
So I just want to remind you that the last time we met, we talked about confidentiality and what that is. And I just wanted to make sure that you understood that that still is true, and all of that for these assessments that we talked about that we were going to do today. So,
Absolutely.
great. So when we're doing these assessments, some of these things are things that I am just going to kind of observe in you, and gain information for myself. And then some of these things are going to be things that I will ask you direct questions or even have you fill out if we were in person here. So there's a couple of different things that we're going to do. And then when we're done, I'll explain it all to you. And feel free as we're going through these things, if you have any questions, just ask. You always have my permission to, if there's anything that I say or anything that is even slightly confusing or you want to slow down, let me know. If anything comes up that we've talked about triggers, and that word is kind of the hot word these days, but if anything that kind of bubbles up for you or anything gets stirred, just let me know. And just keep in mind that you are in a safe place, and that we have this wonderful therapeutic relationship that we have been working on for a couple weeks now. And so that we can always come back to that. Does that feel okay for you?
It
Okay,
does.
great. So I want to start with, we had, I guess just kind of give me a check-in on where you're at today.
I'm okay. I am, probably a little coming down from being out of town and doing a big race that I've been preparing for. So that a physical activity, I'm going from a lot to kind of nothing. So that's a little bit stark for me. It feels like you fall off a cliff, you know, but it's a good problem to have, I guess. So I think I'm okay.
And when did you come back from your trip?
Just a couple days ago.
Okay, cool. And where are you now? Where do you live? I
I
guess.
live in St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. So that was a big trip, and now you're back and you're here. And so it is definitely a big difference.
hmm
Um, does it feel good to be back home, or what does that feel like?
Always, yeah. No, it's it always gives me good perspective when I visit other places to see things that I really enjoy in other parts of the world, but then also to come back home and to recognize what a lucky person that I am to live near the beach and it's kind of our fall, which is not a real fall. So, you go from wearing flip-flops all the time to maybe only wearing them 3 times a week.
Nice. I'm a little jealous. This is where I'll pretend like I'm in Florida too
Okay.
and enjoy that weather. So great. So we had talked about that we were going to do a couple different assessments today, that sometimes when we talk about depression, we all experience it in a different way. And so we had talked about doing some assessments, one for depression and one for anxiety, to just kind of get a read at where we're at. So the first one that we're going to do is called the Beck Depression Inventory. It's pretty short, and so we're going to go through it together. It's only 21 statements. And so you have a copy of this, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do is we'll have you look at your copy, and then we'll go through, and I just want you to take a couple minutes. I think that through our relationship, I have learned that you're pretty self-aware. And so I feel confident in that I'm going to give you a couple minutes and just let you go through. And when you're done, let me know, and we'll go through and go over them together. And if you have any questions, let me know how they are. Let me know what your questions are and how I can help you kind of work through that. Does that sound okay? Feel comfortable?
Yeah, so you want me to actually go through and put my answers down?
Yeah, or if you want to write them on another piece of paper or something, that then we can go over it together.
Okay. I will do that.
So I'm going to let you take your time, and I don't want you to feel like I'm staring you down. So I'm here and I'm present and I'm holding this space for you. But I'm just going to kind of take some notes for myself as well. Is that okay?
No, that's perfect. Thanks.
Great.
You know, it's interesting in some of these questions, it doesn't really give me a like, I'll give you the past failure, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
That question says 0, I do not feel like a failure, or 1, I have failed more than I should have.
Right.
2, as I look back, I see a lot of failures and I feel like a total failure as a person. I feel like there should be maybe something in between 0 and 1.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of a little bit of a pattern that I'm starting to see in some of these, but that's just feedback that as I walk through this now, and I'm telling you that I'm still going. But
Absolutely. I also just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about this within the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if that changes that as well. But as we're reading through here, excuse me, we're just thinking about the last 2 weeks, which include today, which I know that with your trip, it might have a lot of different things, a lot of
yeah,
things come up.
thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Okay. I am done.
All right. Not too bad.
Yep.
Did that bring up any feelings for you?
Especially with your course correction, so thank you for that.
Yes, sure. So as we're going through, I'm going to just read kind of the generalized question. So for now, we don't have to talk about any of these things in depth unless there's something that you want to talk about. Just because we talked about that we wanted to get a couple assessments done in our session today, I want to honor the fact that some of these things might bring up some other things for you, and I want to give them enough time to really process everything that they need. So if something is coming up that's pressing, I want to invite you to talk about it. And if I have any questions, I might ask. But if not, we're just going to kind of keep going through. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
All right, cool. So for sadness, what did you rate yourself for?
I do not feel sad.
Okay, so a 0 there. And pessimism?
0 as well.
0. Past failure?
0.
Okay. Loss of pleasure?
Put a 1.
Okay. Guilty feelings?
0.
Okay. Punishment feelings?
0.
Self-dislike?
I put a 1 there, and I think that's to talk about it a little bit, is that I finished my race, which was a really cool accomplishment, but it was slower and different than previous races, and that's something I'm just coming to acceptance on. But so there's like a little twinge of that that's there. So it'd probably be, I'm not beating myself up, and I enjoyed every step and pedal and stroke, but it was weird. I had a issue in the water and some other stuff that while I was doing it, so that just kind of hit me, and I'm processing it. That's all.
Okay. And we can always come back to those sort of thoughts too. But thank you for sharing that with me. Sometimes it's hard to kind of talk about those things, especially when we're talking about things that have like a negative connotation, like self-dislike, that kind of brings up some things for people. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
Sure.
Self-criticalness? 0.
0.
Suicidal thoughts or wishes?
0.
Have you had any thoughts of wanting to hurt someone else?
No.
Okay. Crying?
0.
Okay. We'll flip it to the back. Agitation?
I put a 0 on that one as well.
Okay. Loss of interest?
I put a 1, and this is where it's just like, it's just slightly less. And I think that's just kind of coming down off of the trip where I'm like,
Definitely understandable. Yeah. Indecisiveness?
0.
Okay. Worthlessness?
0.
Loss of energy?
I would say a 1 on that one. I just have a little bit less than I was, and I think that's just restorative things happening based on the level of exertion and time zones and all that. So
yes, I understand. Changes in sleeping pattern?
I think I missed that one. So I'm sleeping a little bit more than usual.
Okay.
Just because I think I'm like catching up, and I'm allowing myself to take a nap or to do something like that if I need it, just even if it's like a 30-minute.
So would you say it's safe to say 1A for that?
Yes.
Okay. And number 17, irritability?
0.
Changes in appetite?
1B.
Okay. Concentration difficulty?
0.
Tiredness or fatigue?
So that would be somewhere in between 0 and 1. So if you want to put a 1, that's fine.
Yeah, so when we do this assessment in particular, if we're kind of in between, we score highest. So, and that's not a bad, but yep, so we'll go for a 1 for that one. And then the last one is loss of interest in sex.
0.
Okay. All right. So the cool thing about this is that since it is rated on a 2-week span, we can do this in a couple months or even a month and see if anything changes, as you're coming down off of that journey of your trip and your race and everything, and kind of see how that goes. So what we're going to do now is we'll score it. So pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory to score. We just add it up. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, is that what you got 2? I'll have you check my math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So when I'm looking at, I can show you here, I have our ranges, right? So you're a 6. So normal ups and downs, it's a 1 to 10. So you're right in the middle of that. And so what that tells me is, as we're creating our treatment plan, is that we can definitely look at some maybe depressive symptoms and some normal ups and downs in life, but that's not a severe or an urgent area that we have to focus on our work together. Would you think that's fair to say?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Any questions about that before we go on to the next one?
No, I guess that the only thing would be like, how often do we do this?
Yeah, so I think that since you are in the normal range, through our conversations over the next couple sessions, if I see that things are starting to come down or go up, then we can do it again. Right now, you're well in that normal ups and downs.
I'm normal.
You're normal. Congratulations. But also, sometimes we're not going to fall into the normal range, and that's okay too. It just gives us information. So like with all assessments, there's no judgment. It's just information. It's just gaining more understanding of ourselves. So are you ready for the next one?
I am.
So this is going to talk about anxiety. So this is another one where it's a self-report. So this is just based on you. I'm not going to ask, your friends and family how they're feeling. This one's really coming from you, which is important. So we are going to, excuse me. This one is a little different than the depression, only because in this, we're looking at the last month. So it also includes today, but we're looking at the last month. So these are all common symptoms of anxiety that we're going to look at. And this one, rather than a number scale, we have not at all, mildly, but it didn't bother me much, moderately, it wasn't pleasant at times, and severely, it bothered me a lot. So did you enjoy going through it on your own? Because we have the option where you can do that, or we can go through this together. Do you have a preference?
No, I guess I can just go ahead and go through it by myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I would say though that there was just the numbness and tingling and feeling hot, and a couple of those two things, mostly hot and cold sweats. I have pretty severe nerve damage stuff that creates those things. And then I also have, I went through menopause early. So I've already been through that, but I still get sometimes hot and cold sweats. So those are just things, information that if I indicated that it sucked, but it happened. But
yeah, so I think
I know how that affects.
And that's really important to bring up. And that's something that you and I will both consider as we're going through and looking at the scoring for this, is that some of these things might not be a direct result of feeling anxious, but could be a medical thing and have other reasons for being there. So thank you for letting me know that. We'll definitely keep that in mind.
Sure. Okay. I think I can get through this. I'll just go ahead and start.
Sure.
Okie dokie.
All right. So for numbness or tingling, where did you?
Severely bothers me a lot.
Yes. Feeling hot?
I would say moderately.
Okay. Wobbliness in legs,
Moderately.
right? Unable to relax?
Not at all.
Okay. Fear of the worst happening?
Not at all.
Dizzy or lightheaded?
Mildly.
Okay. Heart pounding or racing?
Mildly. I also have that as a condition.
Sure.
So there's going to be a couple of things in here that are.
Sure. Feeling unsteady?
That's going to be mildly. I can tell you that terrified and afraid is mildly, because I was in some of these extreme scenarios as I go down through this. We're all tied to basically. It's only happened to me twice, and one was in the last month, and it was in the water, and it was cold. It was like really super cold water. I was in a wetsuit, and it was choking me. And it was the one and only time like I've ever thought about quitting a race. Like
Yeah.
I had a meltdown in the water, and then I was like, whoo, and I pulled it, unzipped it, and then I swam really fast, and I was like, okay, I'm over it. But I had literally 2 minutes where I was like, I can't breathe.
Wow.
I'm freaking out. And I'm going to quit this race right now. And I looked around and I was like, okay. So that's all in relationship to this. But in general, my heart rate is normally, resting heart rate is in the low 40s. So like,
right.
It's going to be out of whack. So back to you. Nervous, I would say that was mildly. And then feeling of choking, it was severely. And then hands trembling mildly, shaky, unsteady, moderately, fear of losing control. I didn't put that because I didn't feel that.
Okay.
So that was not at all. Difficulty in breathing was severely. Fear of dying. I didn't think I was going to die, so I said not at all. But I was going to quit, right? Which is worse than dying. Scared severely. Indigestion, I get that sometimes, but it doesn't bother me so mildly.
Okay.
Faint, lightheaded, not at all. Face flush, not at all. Hot and cold sweats, mildly.
Okay. So, and we had talked a little bit about too that some of these things are medical and whatnot. So, I'm gonna score this just at face value for what it is, and then I think that we can also keep in the back of our minds that there are some other reasons for these things, but it can also be really difficult when we are experiencing anxiety sometimes to kind of separate what is real and actually physically happening and what is a symptom of anxiety. So we're going to look at it that way and keep in our minds that we know that some of these things are medical. Okay. Like I said before, assessments are just giving us information. There's no judgment there. So when I am looking to score this, just for full transparency, for severely, that's going to be a 3. And then moderately is 2, mildly is 1, and then not at all is 0. So I am going to get out my calculator because I like to double check everything here. And I'm going to add these up. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 12. 2, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I got 26. Did you happen to? Do you want to double check me on there?
No, I'm fine.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So 26 puts us. You can kind of see my scoring here, which is on the back of your sheet. I'm trying to figure out where you can see that in the camera here. But here we had a total score of 26, which puts us in the moderate level. So this moderate is between 22 and 35. So you're on the low level of moderate, but I think that given what we talked about and the experience that you had in the past month, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So
And then my other physical situations that I've come to live with,
yeah,
but they are real. So I try not to ignore them, just acknowledge them.
Yeah. All right. So what was that like as you're going through this, scoring this, and thinking back to especially that one incident during your race, during the swim portion? Did that bring up anything for you, or does that feel okay?
No, it didn't really bring anything up, except for the stopping part, the quitting part. Like I'm not typically a person that, my husband calls me the Terminator. It just, in life, that's who I am. I just do.
Yeah.
And I pride myself on that. But I also know how to take care of myself too. But so it was cool, I guess, that I even considered that an option. So maybe that's something that's I'm giving myself a little grace, but it really wasn't an option.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. It didn't bring anything up
Okay.
weird. It just isn't, and then I finished, and I was able to help people later on in the race, and I enjoyed every bit of it. And, one lady that was finishing her first half Ironman, so I was able to give her sunscreen, and I was like, we got to get out of here, and we all ran out, and then I saw them finish. So I look at it in the context of that, and it's kind of beautiful, right? That I was like, that's what part of it is the courage to keep going and find new solutions.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like you were able in that moment too to really work through what you were going through. It sounds like you have a really incredible ability to process on your own and to use whatever kind of coping skills that you had at that moment, whether it was some sort of reality therapy of just saying like, no, you're here, it's okay, giving yourself space, like that physical time too. It sounds like you handled that really wonderfully. So I want, talk about having pride in finishing and being able to help these other people too, but also have a pride in yourself and that you were able to give yourself what you needed in that moment to get you through that difficult time.
Totally.
That's really great. Yeah. Okay. So we have one more assessment that we're going to do. And those are the main assessments that I like to use for depression and anxiety. This last one that we're going to do is looking at alcohol consumption and alcohol use in some disorders. And I'm choosing the one that I am. It's called the audit because I really appreciate, I'm a visual person, and I think that sometimes people do tend to be visual. And I really appreciate that they give us this little chart here that kind of just breaks down what the what standard drink equivalents are, because sometimes things can be confusing, especially if you're going out or you're buying a bottle of wine and how many standard drinks are in that. And if I'm making something at home, it really gives us a really great breakdown so that those things aren't confusing for us. And we've also just talked about that. I think that this makes the most sense for us versus the drug abuse screening test. And so I was able to kind of weed those out. So
maybe I'll make this easier though, before we jump into all the content, that I appreciate you clarifying and showing me the visual, because that's always helpful. I have long-term double-digit sobriety, so
congratulations.
All of it's zero.
All right, fantastic.
So that's going to make that one real easy, and I'm pretty clear that my pour would be way different than the pour that
right. Talking about. Well, congratulations on that. That's really incredible. It sounds like you have a lot to be proud of, even in just this small portion of our session today. So many things have come up that are areas of resources for you. things that you've been through and that you have accomplished and moved through that aren't easy things to do. And so in our future sessions, because we've talked about maybe doing some EMDR resourcing, my trauma processing. And so these are all really wonderful, valuable things that we can use in our sessions in the future. So when we look at kind of what we went over today, we have 2 assessments that the outcomes kind of indicated that they may not need to be a high priority for us to focus on. That was the substance and alcohol use, and also the depression, because we scored within the normal range for that. So especially for the depression, we'll keep that in the back of our minds, that if things start creeping in and we're starting to get stronger feelings that may have depressive symptoms, we can always look back at that and reevaluate. And then the assessment that we did today that we can look at to help with our treatment planning is the anxiety inventory. So that was the Beck Anxiety Inventory assessment that we completed together, where we scored by having moderate anxiety. So I think that we can work together. We can work on more of the coping skills that you can give to yourself and that you can use with other people, co-regulation and regulation skills, and look at all sorts of things there. And we can come back and take this assessment in a couple months and see how that has impacted it, if it impacts it at all. Do you have any questions about any of the things that we talked about today?
No, I don't think so. No, I think it's kind of covered everything. So thank you.
This is going to feel like a really crazy question because I know that we've just been talking, but I have to ask it. Have you experienced any, have you seen anything strange or had any auditory things happen since we've been talking that may not be there? Sounds that you didn't expect to hear? No? Okay. I know that's sometimes a strange question, especially after we've been talking for a while. But it's just one of those that I kind of have to ask about. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today regarding our assessments?
No.
I want to thank you for being really open and honest and going through these things with me. I know sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it does feel easy. But either way, I really appreciate it. And we will continue on to create our treatment plan here in our next session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Chelsea.
Bye.